In this video, I'd like to share with you lessons that I have learned from buying and selling guitars. Hey everybody, Jamie Holroyd here, helping you learn jazz guitar. If you're new to the channel and you want a structured guide on learning jazz guitar, then please check out the link below to my free beginner jazz guitar guide. The first point that I'd like to make is that gear is really a separate thing on the most part from actually playing and practicing. When I first began playing, I basically just had a cheap Strat, and that's what I probably did my 10,000 hours of practice on. I didn't need a nice Gibson guitar or anything like that, I just needed to practice. So if you're watching this and you think that you need a nice guitar or something like that to make you sound better, then save your money and just start practicing. I would like to split this video up into two different categories. The first is reasons not to buy, and the second is reasons to buy. And I've either been victim to some of these myself, or I've seen it in friends or students. So let's start with reasons not to buy new gear. The first tip that I'd like to share with you in regards to not buying gear is don't buy unless you really need it or really want it. Let's face it, guitars take up space, especially if they come with hard cases. You've got the initial storage factor of the guitar and then a case. So if you have a few, that quickly starts to add up to a decent amount of space in which guitars can take up. The second is if you buy something that you don't really want, if you want to buy it just to try it or something like that, that's a risky game, because if you get it and you don't like it, then you're stuck with it, then you've got to resell it, and this can all be taking away time from actually practicing and progressing on the guitar. The second reason why you shouldn't buy gear is for investment. I know that's a little bit controversial, but hear me out. If you do want to buy something for investment, buy it because you like it first and foremost. Because let's face it, the economy can be good or it can be bad. Guitars can go up or down in value. But if you have a guitar that you love to play, then say if you're stuck with it and you can't sell it, or you're going to have to take a loss and you don't want to, at least if you have a nice guitar, then you can play it rather than a guitar that you don't like, which you're stuck with. If you buy a guitar just for investment and then you leave it in a case under a bed and never play it, then that can also cause other issues and other problems. In my opinion, guitars have got to be played and enjoyed. The next reason why you shouldn't buy something is because the internet said so. YouTube videos can be very deceiving on how things actually play and sound in reality. They can give you a good rough idea, and that really is the bottom line for me, a good rough idea as to how things kind of sound, but they can be massively different when you try them in person and when you hear them with your own ears. Like for example, a while ago I did a video comparing two guitars. It was a Godin 5th Avenue and my Gibson ES 125. Many people on that video left comments saying that they basically both sounded the same. Some people thought the Godin sounded better, and bear in mind there's quite a big difference in price between these two guitars. Both the Gibson and Godin were absolutely miles apart in person, and you never know that from watching the video. So the lesson here is that if you see or hear some gear used by a great player, then take it with a pinch of salt. Most great players can make almost any guitar sound good. The next reason not to buy a piece of gear is if you can complete the following sentence. I will like this piece of gear if I just changed this. Now obviously this is dependent on exactly what it is you are buying, but I've had instruments where I've thought that, oh, I'll just put some heavier strings on, I'll like that more. I'll just get this guitar a refret, then I'll never want to sell it. But it rarely solves the problem, to be honest with you. So if you're trying a guitar and it's not doing it for you, there and then, my advice would just be to leave it. Let's now counter the arguments with some reasons to buy a new piece of musical gear. The first reason is that you are bored of what you have and you just want to change. This could be one of two things. You could simply trade or sell what you have to buy some new gear, or you could keep what you have and get some new gear alongside of that. For me, I have to say that I have to psychologically want to play a guitar. I want to open the case after the honeymoon period and be inspired to play it and not want to put it down. So that is a valid reason in my opinion. I think that if you go through that cycle too frequently, that could possibly be a little bit unhealthy. But generally speaking, I think anything that you can do to stay motivated within reason and without getting yourself into any financial trouble is definitely a good thing to pursue. It could be something a lot simpler than a new guitar, right? You could just treat yourself to some new strings, a new music stand, whatever it might be. That could also be a reason, but if it also equivalates to buying a new guitar or an amp just to kind of give you some new sounds and a bit more inspiration, within moderation, I don't see any problem with that. The next reason that you could use to buy something is as a reward or a present. A few of my students have done this and I completely agree with their thinking. They've made sufficient amount of progress either through something like a grade exam or maybe playing at a few jam sessions, and they thought, you know what, I've really persevered, practiced, I feel like I can now justify a nicer guitar. I think that's absolutely fine. As a reward, then I think that's a good reason to justify purchasing something, like I said in the first point, within moderation. The last reason to buy something is if you need it. That's probably the most simple and easygoing answer that you could have in regards to buying a guitar. Very simple, isn't it? If you need an electric guitar for a certain type of sound, if you need a humbucker or Les Paul type of sound, buy a Les Paul. If you need a good acoustic, buy a good acoustic. If you need an amp for gigging with a band, that is the purpose of why you need that. That is completely fine. The only thing that I'd say here is to kind of emphasize that you don't always need what you sometimes think you might need. For example, there's some excellent examples of guitar players who have used kind of inexpensive gear, and I've actually done a video about that, which I'll link to now. But generally speaking, I've found that in professional settings, when I first began teaching, I used this acoustic. I was teaching general guitar lessons when I first began, and I had this cheap acoustic that I was bought when I was 12 years old. I used that to teach lessons on for a long time, and it was great. It was absolutely fine. I had no problems doing that and using that guitar, and that was in a professional setting. Likewise, for a lot of kind of general guitar teaching that I used to do more of, I used to basically just use a cheap solid state amp that I would keep around the studio, and it would be absolutely fine, to be honest. You know, what was it the best overdrive ever? Was it the latest and greatest overdrive pedal? No, but if you're teaching a song, would it get you in the ballpark to demonstrate the necessary techniques, and would I be able to enjoy my playing when playing through a cheaper amp? Yeah, no problem whatsoever. So that would be kind of the hint of caution that I'd say with that. Sometimes, you know, I think some people get carried away and they think that they're playing the Royal Albert Hall, when realistically only very few of us will actually ever get to experience that. So those are some of the things that I've learned through buying and selling gear. Now, I'm not against that, and certainly this channel in recent years has become more about gear, and a lot of people ask me about gear, guitars, amps, should I buy this, should I buy that? So this video is a little bit different, and if you like videos like this and you want more things like this, then let me know. As I said, I'm not against it. I've bought and sold a few guitars over the last couple of years. I kind of go through periods of, you know, enjoying what I've got for a long time, and then occasionally I might just get something new, something in, something out. You know how it is. But I think through doing that, it's been interesting for me, because if you can be bothered with the hassle of it, you can obviously get some stuff that you're really happy with also. But equally, you know, if I was sent to the other side of the world and I had to, you know, just buy a guitar, I'd pretty much just be happy with a half-decent telly and maybe a nice arch top, and I'd be fine with those, to be honest with you. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. What have you learned from buying and selling guitars? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.